Hello, everybody. Welcome back to We're Talking Movies. As always, I'm Andrew, joined as always by Cade, and we're here for a review from one of the biggest movies of the early 2000s that would go on to create one of the biggest franchises in Hollywood history. We're looking at Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl from 2003. And Cade, let's just get right into the pros, and I think we both have the same one we have to start with. We got to talk about Jack Sparrow.
Yes, we do.
It's almost too obvious to say, but damn, what a great fun character Jack is. And nobody but Johnny Depp could play this character.
Absolutely. Jack Sparrow is such an awesome character to follow. The reason why is because, he's just so many different things. He's charismatic at times, he's chaotic, he's got a lot of humor to him, he's totally unpredictable. And again, Johnny Depp perfectly captures that in his performance. And like you said, I don't think anyone else but him could have played him. And, I've mentioned this before in other reviews, but one of the things that works really well about Jack is that he's a very flawed character. And I think that those are the best types of characters to follow. And sure, he can be a very self-serving character and tries to get himself out of bad situations first. But despite that, Jack at times does show that he cares about his friends, those friends specifically being Will, Elizabeth, and Gibbs. And you see him go to great lengths to help them, even if it means putting himself in danger in the process. So yeah, he's a flawed character, but that's what makes him so, I think, fun to follow and also kind of relatable too.
Yeah, he's a really good, charming rogue, I think is the best way to describe him. And I love how he's got this knack to either talk his way out of any situation or fight his way out of any situation. He's got like this kooky magnetism about him. It's like you can't look away from this character, and I think that's why he became so beloved. Now, he did become maybe a little too much over the course of the series, but again, we'll save those for another time. But it's such a good performance, and there's a reason why this is one of the most loved characters in movie history. And again, nobody else but Johnny Depp could play him. I also love the fact he's based on Keith Richards, both in his look and his performance, which made it all the more hilarious that they eventually cast Keith Richards to play his father.
Yes, especially just his dynamics with the other characters, specifically characters like Gibbs, but also Will and Elizabeth. Their dynamics are always fun to follow. I really love the partnership between Jack and Will throughout the movie. Again, I really like films that focus on duos, and I think Jack and Will are a great duo to have. They're the complete opposites of each other, but that's why I think they work really well, because if they're the exact same, then that would just be so boring. But they're the complete opposites of each other, but that's why it works so well, and that's why it's so fun to follow.
Yeah, I love the dynamic between Will and Jack because Will's this kind of, he's sort of just this everyman. He's a little awkward. He's clearly love struck. And he spends the entire movie kind of just wondering, how the hell did I get tied up with this guy the entire movie? And that dynamic I always love in movies, and this one is done really well. I also need to further talk about just the dynamic between Will Turner and Elizabeth Swann in this movie. I don't know. I really like their chemistry together. I like that they're clearly very much into each other, but they're kind of awkward, sort of just like they're dancing around the bush, but they're not quite there yet. It's a little awkward. It's a little shy. It's kind of adorable in that way, weirdly enough. I just really like them together. And I also like Elizabeth Swann is not just a romantic interest in this movie. She's not just a damsel in distress. I mean, she's clever enough to keep herself alive despite being pulled into a complete nightmare. Like she lies about who she is, and she uses Will's last name, which kind of keeps her alive because Barbossa and the crew of the Black Pearl think, oh, this is who we've been looking for. Yeah, just, she's another great supporting character. And they also got Barbossa, who's a cool villain.
I love Barbossa, especially in this movie. And I think part of that is because, well, on one hand, I like his motivation, to lift the curse by retrieving the Aztec coin. But just like Jack, Barbossa is another character who I also enjoy seeing on screen. And I also really like the chemistry that he has with Jack. And that's something that I credit Geoffrey Rush and Johnny Depp on. I really enjoy the rivalry between the hero and the villain, but also I love it when the protagonist and the antagonist both have great chemistry with each other. That's always just fun to see.
Oh, yeah. You can feel the animosity between these two characters over the course of the film. Well, I mean, they give the motivation. Barbossa was Jack's first mate and then committed a mutiny against him. So that's going to make Jack probably very angry and want his revenge. But also, Barbossa himself he's a very menacing character. He's got a very creepy nature. The scene where he's first talking to Elizabeth Swann on the Black Pearl and he basically invited her to his cabin for dinner. He's very creepy. And like you said, he's got a very unusual villain motivation. He doesn't want wealth. He doesn't want revenge. He doesn't want to take over the world. He wants to just be free of his curse.
Yeah, and with that, I want to get into the plot for this movie. We see Captain Jack and Will teaming up to set out on this journey to rescue Elizabeth and stop the crew from using the last piece of the cursed Aztec treasure. I think it's a very creative narrative, and I think it's got a very fascinating motivation for the villain or villains, Barbossa and the crew, because, like you talked about, their goal is just to lift the curse. Because despite basically just being unkillable, it stripped them of their ability to feel anything. And in other situations, you would think that characters like that would want to keep that type of ability because it basically just makes them unstoppable. And instead of keeping the power, like you said, they just want to be human again. And I think that's fascinating because it shows you that Barbossa specifically isn't just an all and out evil character. He actually has some humanity to him, which I enjoy.
Yeah, you feel sympathy, but you never like feel empathy for him as a villain, which is a very delicate balance to achieve. But they do achieve it in this movie because, again, yes, Barbosa has some unique motivations, and you do feel for where he's coming from. But he's still such a creep and such a menacing character. So the fact that they also do sort of redeem him over the course of the sequels, I think, is very interesting. But again, topic for another day. That does lead into another one of my big pros. We've been talking about the curse the Black Pearl crew has. Let's talk about how damn good the special effects look in this movie. Not just special effects. The sets look awesome. The costumes are great. For a movie that was made over 20 years ago, and the fact that I just said that out loud makes me feel incredibly old. Special effects in this movie are still phenomenal, especially the zombie effects for the Black Pearl's crew. Combine that with the excellent sets, the costumes. The money is clearly on the screen in this movie. And the fact that it's still aged impeccably is amazing. Definitely worthy of all the praise it gets. And the fact that it, in my opinion, only gets better in Dead Man's Chest with the Flying Dutchman's crew is amazing, in my opinion.
Yeah, I completely agree. The effects in this movie are fantastic. I especially love the design of the crew of the Black Pearl. That's a design that I've always liked. And again, for the early 2000s, I give this movie a lot of credit for still looking so incredibly well. Another pro that I want to bring up with this movie is just the action sequences. The action sequences in this movie are fantastic. And when I think of some of the best action sequences in this movie, one that always has stood out for me is the sword fight between Jack and Will. That to me is probably one of, if not the best sword fight in the entire Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. I also really enjoy the sword fight where we see Jack and Will and Elizabeth taking on Barbossa and his crew. The final battle at the end where Jack and Will are just fighting to stay alive, trying to escape Jack from being hanged. That to me is definitely a standout. So yeah, the action in this movie I think is just fantastic.
Yeah, no, it's all very well choreographed. And as somebody who actually did used to fight longsword, seeing well choreographed sword fights is a plus in my opinion, because when they're not well choreographed, they look really bad. But this is definitely not one of those examples. Also, just one action scene that you didn't bring up. How about talk about the siege of the island at the beginning of the movie? The scale of it, that's a very large scale action sequence, and it looks very good.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's definitely a standout. Another thing that I definitely want to highlight, and you'll probably want to talk about this too, I just want to talk about the score for this movie. And the score for this movie is just so fantastic. I credit Klaus Badell and Hans Zimmer with what they were able to do. Both men did such an incredible job crafting the music for this movie. And, we've talked about this with other movies, but I think the score almost feels like a character of its own in that way because it keeps you invested in the excitement for the film and it fits perfectly with the action and the overall thrill of being in an adventure like this.
Yeah, it's just got that, weirdly enough, we just reviewed Jurassic Park. It's got that same kind of natural sense of adventure feel to it that the Jurassic Park theme has. Obviously, it's a little faster, it's got more energy to it. But yeah, no, I really love the theme for this movie to the point that I actually have it on my iTunes.
Well, and actually, fun fact for anyone who might not know, when Hans Zimmer first heard about this movie, he actually thought it was the worst idea that he'd ever heard. So Hans Zimmer approached the director Gore Verbinski and asked him what he was working on next, and he mentioned, "Oh, well, I'm thinking of doing this pirate movie." And Hans Zimmer apparently thought, "A pirate movie? This is the worst idea I've ever heard." But luckily, Gore Verbinski showed him the film after they finished shooting, and Hans Zimmer was just so enthralled by what he had seen that he immediately changed his mind and signed on.
That is hilarious, and I have never heard that story, but I love it. Again, characters, great, costumes, sets, all very good, scores good, action's good, CGI's amazing. I love the fact that CGI has gone backwards in quality in the last 20 years, but that's a conversation maybe for another day.
Well, now that we've gone through our pros, why don't we get into just some of our cons? You want to start, Andrew?
Don't really have any. I really like this movie. Have for a long time. Definitely the best in the series. I mean, yeah, don't really have any really negatives about this one. I just really like this movie. It's infinitely rewatchable. And it's one of my movies I'll watch when I'm feeling sad kind of films.
Yeah, I totally get it. Well, if I had maybe one little con with this movie, it would probably have to be some of the inconsistencies with the curse. So, one example is when the crew attacks Port Royal. We don't really see the crew members turning into skeletons when they're out in the moonlight, even though it's shining down on them. And the only time that we really see that happen when they're there is when they're in the prison and they find Jack and the moon shines on that one guy's arm. Another one is when we see one pirate take some damage when Will throws an axe at the guy's back. That just kind of bugs me because I thought the whole idea was that these guys couldn't feel anything because of their curse. So yeah, that is just one little issue that I have with this movie. It's not a big one. It's just an inconsistency that I wish could have been handled better.
Okay, I definitely can see where you're coming from in that one. It's a small detail, but it now that you pointed it out, it does seem like one of those things you would notice and then can't really forget.
Yeah, but to wrap this up, let's talk about our final score for this movie.
I'm gonna give this movie a 9. Again, not really too much to say. I really like it. Again, it's one of my favorite comfort movies. It's a really good movie. I've liked it for a long time.
Yeah, there is a lot to like about the movie. Just a few issues that I have with it, but with that, I think I'm going to give Pirates of the Caribbean: The Curse of the Black Pearl a 8.5 out of 10. It's a very good movie. It's a very enjoyable movie. Yeah, 8.5 out of 10 is probably going to be my score.
All right. Well, that's just about wraps it up for today. Thank you all for watching. As always, I've been Andrew. That's been Cade. This has been We're Talking Movies. Please make sure to like and subscribe and follow us on our various socials, and we will see you all again very soon.